WWE decided to do a 24 episode on Raw 25. And that's interesting because the show was not well received by the fans. For the most part, people were very disappointed with the show. I was not a big fan of the show. I didn't think it was as bad as some people said, but I was not a big fan of it. I thought it could have been a lot better. So it's interesting to see how they do this documentary and how much will they acknowledge that the fans were not happy with the show, or are they just going to do like a history of Raw? I think it'll be more of just them talking about the history of Raw more than the actual show in January, because it was very forgettable. It was weird how this documentary opens up with Chris Jericho driving on the Brooklyn Bridge on the way to the Barclays Center, and he's like talking about the fans. It was just a weird way for the documentary to open. He said, like, he told the fans to suck it with Jericho, and I'm thinking to myself, is that WWE telling the fans to fuck you for, like, hating our show? Because they hated Raw 25. So the opening is more just probably going to be a recap of Monday Night Raw's history, and they can do a whole, like, series on Monday Night Raw. They already did. They did the whole, the Monday Night Wars, that whole series. But for Monday Night Raw, I mean, you can't just do, like, if it's going to be about the show that was in January, then it should be that. But I hope it's just not going to be about Raw history and then talking about the show, because it wouldn't work. They're showing some of the wrestlers talking. Kurt Angle's on there, Seth Rollins, The Miz. It's kind of funny. They were showing Vince McMahon having to shake Michael Cole's hand. And then it was they do this production meeting, which was a very cool part, because you never see that part of WWE. You always see the wrestlers backstage whenever they do these 24s, but they were showing Kevin Dunn, who's one of the most despised wrestling personalities on the internet, talking about the production staff and talking to his, all the production people, from the commentators to the camera people to the sound guys to everyone there. So the whole Manhattan Center and Barclays Center thing, they do two shows back to simulcast. Let's talk about WrestleMania 2 when they did three different buildings, but that was all separate. I mean, they did New York first, I think they did Chicago second, and Los Angeles, and WrestleMania 2 sucks. So everyone talks about WrestleMania 1 and WrestleMania 3 all the time, but no one talks about 2 for a reason, because it sucks. So they're showing Elias and Alexa Bliss talking about, how are they going to make this work? I mean, whatever. I mean, it's not very hard. You can do this. I mean, it costs money, obviously, but to do a simulcast, it's been done many times. So right now, it's just like this long montage of all the Raw moments, of all the great Raw moments, Attitude Era mostly, because that's where most of the moments were in the Attitude Era. Then they add some new stuff, every once a year you get a cool Raw moment. That's how it seems nowadays. So they're showing Shane McMahon on this documentary talking a lot, and Triple H. It's basically them praising Vince right now, and Triple H compared him to P.T. Barnum. If you don't know who he was, he's like basically kind of created the circus. So, no, Vince is not that. I wouldn't say that at all. So the documentary got a lot better when we get to see The Undertaker. This is the second time they've done this. The first time was when they did the WrestleMania 33 24 in Orlando, when it looked like it was going to be his last match, and he was in the car talking about his match with Reigns and stuff. And now they're doing it again, him in the car. We get to see Undertaker as the Mark Calloway. I mean, the closest we saw was the American Badass. I'm disappointed we get to see the American Badass this year. I really wanted to see it. But, I mean, they're really protective of their character. But now, since I think they just, they realize he's going to be done, they may as well do it right now. Why not? Why not see him out of character and get his real reactions to stuff? So it's a kind of cool moment. They're showing all the old wrestlers from the Manhattan Center reliving it. And, first time they're walking back in there since, when they were doing Raw Live. There, they showed Undertaker. They showed X-Pac Undertaker interacting. They showed Shawn Michaels there. They showed Razor Ramon. And again, more montages. They're not really getting into when the show starts. They showed Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross doing commentary at the Manhattan Center, but they're not really talking about the show because the show sucked. So they were doing a lot of stuff with The Miz. He got a bit of a piece on the show. Kind of a few minutes. Going through wrestlers, to show Alexa Bliss a couple more times. Just they're showing them before the show. They're not talking about the show as much. I mean, when you show the wrestlers interacting, you can do that about any Raw. There's 52 Raws or 52 SmackDowns. There's 104 shows. You can do this. I don't need to see them interact backstage. I do that every week. I want to see more of what they're gonna, how they planned this fucking show, because it sucked. And I didn't hate the show as much, but the more I think about it, the more I disliked it. I actually didn't think it was too bad. I thought it was disappointing, but I heard a lot of fans really did not like it. They thought it was horrible. I didn't think it was a terrible show, but it was not good. It was disappointing. There was a funny moment when Bayley interacting with Trish Stratus, and Bayley's really excited. I love how much of a mark Bayley is. She comes off really likable. I think they should show that more of that side of her so she can get back over. They were showing Jericho, and of course, that legendary moment when he won the title from Triple H, but then they took it away like 10 minutes later. Man, that pissed so many people off. They were showing a lot of the legends coming, and of course, they show Austin in the Barclays Center. I'm sure he probably wished he was in the Manhattan Center with all his old friends, but he was in the Barclays Center interacting with everybody. So they're in New York City. They showed X-Pac talking to fans in New York City. It's actually kind of cool. And it's just, before the show, so it's like half this documentary's over, and they haven't even got to when the show starts and how they decide to do each segment, whatever. So we go to the opening segment with Austin stunning McMahon, one of the most legendary, I think when you think of Raw, one of the first things you think of is Austin stunning McMahon. I think the most iconic image in Raw history, of all the moments, all the times he stuns Vince. I think everyone that really thinks of, first, when you think of Raw, it's one of the first things you think of in its history. So it was an awesome way to start the show. If you saw my Raw 25 review, I praised the segment heavily. There was actually a funny moment when Vince accidentally pours beer on Shane after Shane took the first stunner. That was a funny moment on the show. I think I forgot to mention that when I first reviewed it, but that segment was great. And they're spending a lot of time on it because the rest of the show kind of fell off a cliff right after that segment. So, there was an actual women's match after the Austin segment, but they decided to skip it. The next big thing is The Undertaker in Manhattan Center. Man, those Manhattan Center fans, they were so excited before the show started, but they were so pissed off after it ended because the show in the Manhattan Center was fucking trash. The Barclays, if you went to the Barclays Center, you got a good Raw. Not like a great 25, but if you were judged by Raw, you got a really good Raw if you're in a Barclays Center. But Manhattan Center, people got screwed. That show was trash in the Manhattan. And I remember the Undertaker promo being very awkward. I remember, at the end, the fans are chanting one more match. He's talking about guys who had to face the Reaper, and then he just says rest in peace, and that's it. I thought that segment was just nothing. They didn't even do anything with John Cena. I thought they'd set up the match he had with Cena, but being that it was a squash match, really wasn't much of a need for it, I guess. Now they're going to the Chris Jericho segment. I remember thinking this was so disappointing because Jericho, he was just coming off that Kenny Omega match at Wrestle Kingdom a few weeks before that. And he had just an incredible match. So he was super over with this crowd. And then they just have him in the backstage segment with Elias, and that's it. That's all you can do with Jericho. You can't fit everyone on the show. I guess it was better being everyone else. I remember they were just introducing people to get them on the show. They have a whole bunch of people stand outside, stand on the stage just to get the people on the show. And it was a train wreck. It was nothing. They had some people to get on the show. Then they also had to do a regular Raw to get the regular talent on. And they're trying to make it special, and it just turned into just a mess. And I did not care for this Raw. They did an Elias segment with him and Jimmy Fallon. He's talking to him in the front row. Then, of course, John Cena comes out. And ended up Elias beating up John Cena. I remember thinking to myself when it first happened, it was so weird. I was not a fan of it. I remember when Elias was saying, oh, The Rock's coming. This would be perfect for The Rock. The Rock and Elias having a big segment at Raw 25. This would be a perfect spot for The Rock. But The Rock never showed up to the show. And he would never show up to WrestleMania. I thought Elias would have a segment with The Rock at WrestleMania. Maybe they saved it for there. No Rock. So The Rock, not... didn't see him at all in 2018 for WWE. He usually at least makes an appearance or two. He usually comes to WrestleMania. He was not at WrestleMania this year. So no Rock. But the Elias thing, when he beat up John Cena in that segment, I thought, well, this is leading nowhere. But I guess it did make sense because I did not think of it because the show was so forgettable, but it actually made sense because they tied up the loose end at WrestleMania. So when John Cena came out, he was waiting for The Undertaker. Elias came out, and then John Cena got his revenge on Elias at WrestleMania. He hit all his 5 moves of doom because he couldn't hit it on The Undertaker because The Undertaker can't take any bumps. So Cena got his shit in anyway at WrestleMania. And I thought to myself, I wasn't even thinking why Elias was out there, but it made sense. Cena was getting his redemption from Raw 25 at WrestleMania. So they showed the match with The Miz and Roman Reigns in the Barclays Center. They had a good match with The Miz winning, but everyone knew, no one really paid much attention because, Roman Reigns, he's going to probably... I thought he was going to win the Royal Rumble. He didn't end up winning. He ended up getting run out by Nakamura, but we all knew he was going to the main event at WrestleMania, so we didn't really care about that. So there's this whole bit with The Miz, and it's interesting because he has to go to the Manhattan Center, but this documentary won't fucking tell you why. We all know why, because the Manhattan Center fans were getting so pissed off. They were just booing everything, or yelling or chanting, "We want refunds" and stuff. So they had to send The Miz to cut a really great promo in the Manhattan Center after he just wanted to turn on the Barclays Center. So he has to literally drive from Brooklyn to Manhattan in New York, and the New York traffic at night, to help these fans to cut a promo, to be nicer, to try to get their moods up. And the fans got to see Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy have a match, so you get to see a Bray Wyatt match. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure the Manhattan Center is really excited. This fucking company gives you a Bray Wyatt match. So it's a cool moment for The Miz because he cut a really good promo, and he talked about the match that he was really inspired by with Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. It's WWE revisionist history. This show was just bombing at the Manhattan Center. Fans were just booing. They were so pissed off. They needed The Miz just to cut a really good promo, and they're just lying. It's fucking this company, man. You watch these, sometimes some of the 24s are more real because they're the hardcore fans who are the audience. So I think WWE is allowed to, be more honest on some of the 24s, but some of the other ones are just WWE revisionist history is just painful to watch because it's such bullshit. That's how I feel about it. There's times when they do this, it's just, it's horrible. So, this documentary is probably just going to end with DX and the Manhattan Center making this was such a great show, and this whole video package, the show was great. Raw 25 was not a good show. And Triple H and Shawn Michaels come out to DX, and the New Age Outlaws get their own entrance, and X-Pac gets his entrance, and Razor Ramon, and then that. And I actually thought that they did a DX reunion at Raw 1000 in 2012. I thought that segment was way better. I liked that segment a lot more, even though China was still alive, and back then they did nothing for her. But they did tribute China in this segment. But that Raw 1000 thing was way more entertaining than this. So overall, this WWE24 was very unnecessary. I don't think Raw 25 deserved its own 24, but at the time you can see why WWE wanted to do it, because they thought this was going to be such a big, epic show. It ended up being a very disappointing show, and I think most of the fans were at least disappointed at the very least. Some of them hated the show. I did not care for this 24, to be honest, because Raw 25 was not very good. So I did think this 24 was a little bit better than Raw 25, but that's not saying much. So just when you think of Raw 25, I think it's very forgettable until even a few months later. And Raw 25 was just a very disappointing show.